Hi there, my name is John. Let's talk movies. Welcome to my first ever high definition video on this channel. And also welcome to my first tier list video. And a very fitting theme for the Halloween season. Okay, I'll stop. This theme I also felt would be very fitting with how successful Beetlejuice has been doing. Although I did notice that it has like love it or hate it type ratings. But whatever, that's not important right now. So, in case you haven't guessed by the title or what I've kind of mentioned earlier, we are looking at Tim Burton movies. And what I mean specifically by Tim Burton movies is movies directed by Tim Burton. Like, this tier list is only limited to movies directed by Tim Burton, so you're not going to see any of those other movies he worked on where he was not the director. So, like, you're not going to see Nightmare Before Christmas or James and the Giant Peach or any of those other movies he worked on. No, it's only movies that Tim Burton directed. So, with that being said, let's head over to the tier list. Alright, y'all, here we are at the tier list. So, before we get into the rankings, I'd just like to explain what all these tiers mean. Yeah, these. What do these mean? I mean, I'm sure most of y'all already know, because tier list videos are pretty much all over the place here on YouTube. But, like, for anybody that's new to tier lists, I'll explain it anyways. So, S tier means this is a brilliant film. A tier means I think this is a great film. B tier means this movie's pretty good. C tier means it's okay. D tier means, well, it's not horrible, but I definitely don't like this movie. And F tier means, dear God, I fucking hate this movie. Please kill it with fire. The other thing I have to disclaim is these rankings are based on my opinion. Not yours, not your mom's, not your dad's, not anybody else's. My opinions. And I'm sure y'all are going to have completely different opinions than mine, which is very understandable. You know, as human beings, we all like different things. It's what makes us human. So like, we all can't like the same things, and so it's important that we just respect each other's opinions. Especially my opinions with how I'd rank these movies. So with that being said, let's get into the rankings. First up, released in 1985, we have Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I very much enjoyed. You know, like, I don't love it to the extent where I'd put it in, like, S tier. And, like, yeah, like, it's campy, it's weird, but don't get me wrong, it's part of the humor of this film. Like, from what I can tell, Pee Wee Herman is, like, a very weird character. Like, what I especially like about this movie is like how weird Pee Wee Herman is, yet he can like bond with people real easily, especially a fucking biker gang. Like if I were to approach a biker gang, I probably would not be here recording this video right now. Like, no. All it takes for Pee Wee Herman to win their trust over is to just dance to tequila. Are you fucking serious? That is awesome. I wish that worked in real life. I'm sure I'd get my ass kicked regardless if I did the same thing. So yeah, I guess the reason why I wouldn't put Pee-wee's Big Adventure in S tier, but more like A tier, is because I'm not too familiar with the character of Pee Wee Herman. And like, really, this is the only Pee Wee Herman thing I've seen. And hell, I still enjoyed it. I found that the campy and weird and over-the-top humor worked very well in this movie. Sometimes it doesn't work all the time. Like, there are a couple hit or miss jokes, you know. But regardless, I had fun watching this. I could definitely see myself watching this movie many more times. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1988, we have Beetlejuice. I mean, come on. We're talking about one of my childhood favorites here. And yes, I watched Beetlejuice when I was a kid. I'm probably going to get so many comments saying, why the hell would your parents let you watch this movie? Yeah, my parents were never strict about what I watched. Because, yeah, they even let me watch Men in Black. Like, they were the type of parents who were, who always thought that if I was enjoying what I was watching, they'd see no harm in me watching it. So yeah, in the case of Beetlejuice, you know, like, even to this day, I still laugh my ass off at Michael Keaton just grabbing himself on the nuts and just honking it like a bike horn. You know, like, you know, this scene.
Nice fucking model!
It's actually my favorite part, actually. Yeah, it just really goes to show how brilliant Michael Keaton is, despite the fact that he's not even in most of the movie. Like, he's really in like 15 minutes of this movie, and yet he still puts on a hell of a show. I also like to look at this movie as like a satire on horror movies that are like based around haunted houses, you know, like Poltergeist, for example. There's the way I see the humor, it like makes fun of the fact that these people in all these haunted house movies, they just never think to get the fuck out of the house as soon as they realize it's haunted. Like, the jokes they make perfectly explain how stupid these people are in these movies. Cause yeah, like, if I were to have a shrimp cocktail come to life and grab me in the face, I'd run out of the house screaming. But like, the Dietzes described it as like being in an amusement park. Which is fucking hilarious. So yeah, Beetlejuice is, even now that I'm all grown up, it's absolutely hilarious. I would never get tired of watching this movie. So, enough said, let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1989, we have Batman. Batman, y'all. Now, this is actually my favorite superhero film. And I know people would say there are better ones out there, like especially The Dark Knight. People would say The Dark Knight especially is a better superhero film, which I can see why, you know. Batman definitely shows up more often in that movie than he does here. And don't get me wrong, The Dark Knight is a brilliant film. I'd probably say it's my second favorite superhero film. Yeah, if there's anything I'll admit The Dark Knight has better than this movie, it's the Joker. Like, yeah, it's undeniable that Heath Ledger is the best Joker. But, you know, Jack Nicholson is definitely my second favorite. Like, just like Michael Keaton did as Beetlejuice, Jack Nicholson puts on a hell of a show as the Joker. Like, he's just making all these terrible jokes, yet his laughter in this movie is just so contagious, I just can't help but laugh along with him. And even the makeup is, like, phenomenal on Jack Nicholson. Like, the way they use prosthetic makeup to, like, stretch out his smile. Like, it looks fucking awesome. And also, Michael Keaton. In 1 year, he goes from playing Beetlejuice, a tacky, perverted bioexorcist, to playing Batman, the Cape Crusader himself. it really shows that Michael Keaton has an insane range of characters that he's played. Yeah, even as Batman, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And like, yeah, I guess that's what I love especially about Batman more than The Dark Knight. It's like, it's all about who played the best Batman. And for me, it's Michael Keaton. And I especially loved his Bruce Wayne. I thought he was absolutely charming, and I was really able to buy into his character. Like, this is how I'd picture Bruce Wayne being, because like, and like, especially because of how I've heard that like there was a lot of controversy around Michael Keaton being cast as Batman. It's like, and like, if I were to be honest, I think that's what made Michael Keaton such a great Batman, because if Batman were to actually exist, I would never expect this guy to be Batman. So like, yeah, it's really about who I think would be the least expected to be Batman. So like, yeah, Michael Keaton definitely takes the cake with that. And I especially got to talk about like the score by Danny Elfman. Like, it's absolutely insane. Like, it really adds to like the dark atmosphere and the dramaticness of it. And y'all probably remember I played the main theme from this movie over on my second channel as a tribute for my godfather who passed away back in 2018. Because he was a huge Tim Burton fan, and he especially loved Batman. Although, out of all the Tim Burton films, his favorite was actually Alice in Wonderland. Though I thought the score from Alice in Wonderland would be a little too hard for me to play. That, and I just don't really remember it that well. Like, yeah, the main thing from Batman, like, yeah, it's like the trademark Batman film. You know, aside from like, you know, the Adam West theme. Although I'm not too familiar with that because I've never watched that show. I've been meaning to. I've been meaning to check it out at some point, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But I guess there is a backstory behind why I'd say Batman is my favorite superhero film, because, well, when I was a kid, I loved superheroes. In fact, I actually remember Superman being my favorite superhero. Because, yeah, two of my favorite movies to watch when I was a kid was Superman Returns and the Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. And I also had the Superman Returns video game, and I used to play that shit a lot when I was a kid. But some other superheroes I loved is, well, actually mainly like Marvel superheroes, like, because, you know, I grew up watching Sam Raimi's Spider-Man films. And I think I remember watching the Ang Lee Hulk film like once when I was younger. Which, yeah, I know, it's very bad. I do not disagree with y'all on that. Like, it was a stupid movie. Yeah, anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, I loved superheroes when I was a kid. But around middle school, my interest in them started to drift away, mainly because I was trying to be one of the cool kids. Yeah, I was that student. I was that type of student. I was like the special ed kid who just wanted to fit in with everybody. But I guess when I started doing impressions, that started to work in my favor. But, you know, like, the first time I watched this movie was, like, before that, though. It was, like, the summer after my freshman year in high school. I wanted to watch this movie with my dad, because even though I wasn't that interested in superhero films. I did have a strong love for Tim Burton films at the time. However, my dad does not. In fact, Beetlejuice is like one of the only films he loved. We'll get to the others later. Yeah, Batman. Yeah, he didn't really care much for this movie simply because he is not a huge fan of superheroes himself. I mean, like, he's also a nerd, but like a different kind of nerd. So, you know, I love all the stereotypical things that nerds love, like superheroes, Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Harry Potter, all that shit. You know, like, I love it all. That really shows how big of a nerd I am. But yeah, Batman, when I watched this movie, this actually brought back my interest in superheroes. Like, it made me want to check out more superhero films, and really made me the nerd that I am today. And what can I say? I'm definitely proud to call myself a nerd. It's like, yeah, usually people would take being called a nerd as an insult. But I'd just take it as a compliment. You know, like somebody were to walk up to me like, huh, nerd! I'd just be like, why, yes I am. Thank you for noticing. And yeah, it's all because of this movie. Like, I loved it so much. It turned me into a complete nerd. And just made me think that trying to be cool is just overrated as fuck. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Batman. It's an absolutely brilliant film that I'd highly recommend. So yeah, let's move on to the next movie, shall we? Next up, released in 1990, we have Edward Scissorhands. Edward Scissorhands, y'all. I'm gonna try not to cry talking about this movie. This is not only my favorite Tim Burton movie, but it is my favorite movie of all time. Like, I adored every minute of this. And it's funny, I do remember watching this a couple of times when I was a kid, and I remember liking it. As an adult, I just get more invested in the story and just really get into the characters and everything, you know. Is, you know, like, as a kid, I don't care about that shit. I just enjoy them. Yeah, Edward Scissorhands, no matter how many times I watch this movie, it never fails to leave me bawling my eyes out. And, like, it's really the type of movies I love, is like the movies that make me feel emotional. Though, I mean, I guess that's not entirely true. I mean, like, I actually prefer, like, comedies. Like, that's actually my favorite genre of film, like, comedy. Probably because I'm a comedian and I like to appreciate all forms of comedy. Though, I can definitely admit that the emotional roller coasters really get to me, and are definitely some of my favorite movies. And Edward Scissorhands absolutely takes the cake, and I would definitely consider it my #1 favorite movie ever. So yeah, it makes me cry when Edward tells Winona Ryder goodbye, because, you know, things didn't work out in the suburbs. Like, everybody took advantage of him, what especially is sad about it is that he's such a nice guy. And all these people used him for his talents. Which goes to the reason why I consider this my favorite movie of all time. Is, like, it obviously teaches the lesson, you know, don't judge a book by its cover. I love movies that teach that lesson. I feel like it's a lesson that really everybody should take into consideration. Like, just because they are a certain way doesn't mean that they are a certain way. And in the case of Edward, they all see him as like this tool that people can use to cut things up when they need something cut up, you know, like hedges or like paper or something like that, you know. But like they just never take the time to get to know Edward as a person, even though he was never human to begin with, obviously. Like he was created by a man, but you know, he was never finished because the inventor died before he could finish him. But that didn't mean he didn't have a heart. Because Edward was this very sweet, nice guy. And again, these people just take advantage of him. And it's so sad. And especially with the performance from Johnny Depp, it's absolutely brilliant. And it always brings tears to my eyes. You know, simply because of how innocent he always looked. You know, like... You know, he's like this shy, like... middle school student, I can say. Like, he's this very shy middle school student who, like... Which, you know, it makes sense, you know, because, like, he was rarely... He's never seen the outside world. He's kind of like Ariel from The Little Mermaid in a way. Except, you know, he doesn't live underwater. He lived up in a castle. And he was like... That's where he's been his whole life. I think I'm just rambling at this point, yeah. Edward Scissorhands, again, it's my #1 favorite movie. It has a great moral, great story, and wonderful visuals that we all expect to see from Tim Burton. And even the score by Danny Elfman really adds to the emotion of the story. Yeah, even Nostalgia Critic pointed this out. Yeah, you know, the ice dance scene when Winona Ryder comes out and starts dancing in the snow with Edward cutting up this ice sculpture, and like that's where the snow comes from. So she starts dancing in it. Without the music, she would look fucking high in that part. So yeah, again, I think that's all I have to say about Edward Scissorhands. It's a beautiful film. I love it to death. There's no other movie I love more. Let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1992, we have Batman Returns. Now, I know a lot of people like this movie, but for me it's just... Something I'll give Batman Returns is the bizarre visuals that we usually expect from Tim Burton is really cool to look at, you know, like with how like the Penguin's umbrella has like this swirly, like hypnotism like thing on it. It does look really cool. And yeah, Michael Keaton still kicks ass as Batman in this, and Michelle Pfeiffer, I will say, is a damn good Catwoman. Like she was phenomenal as Catwoman. And I mean, the Penguin, like, Danny DeVito is just perfect casting for that. Like, it makes complete sense. 'Cause yeah, if I were to think about who I would cast as the Penguin, Danny DeVito definitely would have been my first choice. And while he does have a very tragic backstory, and he does have some enjoyable moments, he does lead to my main issue with the film. And it is so fucking dark. I mean, yeah, I know like the first Batman was dark, but you know, it was like atmospherically, and it wasn't like, you know, grim and gory. You know, like with the penguin biting this dude on the nose. I was like, what the fuck? And, okay, I'm pretty sure that's how you're supposed to feel about that. But I don't know, it just felt like too much for me. And even the fact that he was like gonna kidnap all the firstborn sons of Gotham City and kill them all. Like, I felt that was even dark, especially for Tim Burton. Ugh, that voice crack. I felt that it was especially too dark, especially for Tim Burton. So yeah, really my main issue with Batman Returns is that I don't like how dark it is. It's really the main problem I have with the movie, because, like, aside from that, again, Michael Keaton still rocks it, Michelle Pfeiffer rocks it, Christopher Walken gives off an enjoyable performance as well, and, well, I can see why some people would like this movie more than the first Batman, because, you know, like, there's more Batman action in it. But, for me, it's just okay. Not good, not bad, just okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1994, we have Ed Wood. Now this is my second favorite from Tim Burton. Although I don't know too much about the real Ed Wood, like, I haven't seen any of his movies. I know of a few of them, obviously, because this is a biography on Ed Wood. Because, yeah, I know of Bride of the Monster, I know of Plan 9 from Outer Space. I mean, obviously, like, that's like the main movie that everybody thinks about when they think of Ed Wood. There was another one I knew of. Glenn or Glenda, that was the one I was thinking of. Yeah, I know about that movie as well. I haven't seen any of them. Now, obviously, I have seen this movie, and I think it's brilliant. Like, despite the fact that I don't know too much about this director. Yeah, you know, Johnny Depp gives off a hell of a performance as Ed Wood as well. You know, like, he really... Like, he actually looks like he's very invested in the movies he's making as Ed Wood. Like, it's just so brilliant. Like, his reactions, like, his acting just looks absolutely genuine in this role. And, you know, obviously I still prefer Edward Scissorhands, but, you know, Ed Wood, still a phenomenal film. Even though I don't know too much about the real Ed Wood, I still thought it was great. I was told about things that the real Ed Wood was known for doing, you know, like being a cross-dresser. You know, he felt comfortable wearing women's clothing. But, you know, it does lead to a really good aspect that I like to see from this movie, and it's that it just, like, the fact that he's just comfortable telling certain people that he likes to wear women's clothing and makes him feel comfortable really shows that he does not care what people think of him. Especially with how bad his movies have been doing. Like, he just doesn't care. He loved making them. That's another thing I love to see in movies, is when there's characters that just simply don't care about what others think of them. Because it's very relatable to me. Like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. Like, like, the way I act in my videos, well, when I'm talking in my normal voice, that is, it is very much how I behave in real life. Like, I'm a very silly and over-the-top guy, as I've mentioned, and, like, when I was talking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you know. Yeah, Ed Wood. Another thing I love is Martin Landau's performance as Bela Lugosi, who I'm also not familiar with on terms of like real people. Yeah, all I know about Bela Lugosi is that he was the original Dracula, and he obviously starred in Ed Wood's films. Yeah, Martin Landau gives off a hell of a performance as Bela Lugosi as well, and I never would have guessed in a million years that he was wearing makeup to look like Bela Lugosi. It's like, yeah, all that makeup, because yeah, he was given special makeup effects done by Rick Baker, who has also done makeup work for movies like Men in Black and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Yeah. That makeup was so good, it did not look like makeup to me at all. Like, that... Like, I rarely see that. I rarely see movies doing that, just convincing me that these actors are not wearing makeup, and yet they are. So yeah, overall, Ed Wood is a phenomenal film. Even if you don't know about the real Ed Wood like I don't, I'd still recommend watching this. Simply to see, like, especially if you're very passionate about movies like I am, this is a good movie to watch. Anyways, enough talking. Let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1996, we have Mars Attacks. Name a more random movie. Now, out of all of Tim Burton's movies, this was the only one that ever scared me when I was a kid. So, I never watched it all the way through until I was like 15. You know, like back in middle school when I wasn't that interested in superheroes. Yeah, back then I loved it, but you know, that was because at the time I just loved any movie I watched. Unless somebody were to say it was bad, then that's when I'd say I hated it. So yeah, I gave Mars Attacks a rewatch when I was 20, and I was like, this is a lot weirder than I remember it being. And yeah, and I even started to notice like the cult following it had, like when I was 21, which obviously would have been last year, so yeah. I'm noticing it. Like, most of the cult followers of this movie are like people my age or like somewhere around my age. So I decided to give it another rewatch then, and yeah, my thoughts on it still remain the same. I just think it's such a fucking weird movie. Like, even today I'm still trying to figure out what the hell did I just watch. I mean, like, the Martians are funny, but the human characters are just super boring. And it's very unexpected coming from such a star-studded cast. Because, yeah, you got Jack Nicholson, Glenn Close, Pierce Brosnan, Danny DeVito, Jack Black, Martin Short, Michael J. Fox, Sarah Jessica Parker. And yet, they're the most boring part of the movie. Like, there's hardly any character put into them. In terms of, like, development, character development, you know. Like I really just only got laughs out of the Martians. Like, everything the Martians did was just funny. The way they wreak havoc, you know, like bowling on Easter Island and taking a picture in front of the Indian Palace, but like waiting until it blows up to take the picture. That was fucking funny. And okay, I will admit, out of all the human characters, the grandma is definitely the funniest. Like, she definitely gets a couple of giggles out of me. Especially at the part where she laughs about them blowing up Congress.
They blew up Congress!
That was fucking hilarious. So yeah, Mars Attacks. Well, it's not one of the worst movies I've ever seen. You know, usually I agree with cult followers about movies, but in the case of Mars Attacks, I don't. Yeah. Again, for me, it's pretty much on the same level as Batman Returns. It's just okay. Like, the humor is just very much hit or miss for me. So, yeah. Yeah, again, like I said, the Martians were like the only funny part about the movie. However, their voices do get really annoying after having to listen to them for a while. Because, yeah, that's what I want to watch. An hour and a half of hearing act. Oh my god. I even feel like I'm giving myself a headache just doing that. And, another thing I have to say is this. That is fucking terrifying. In fact, I hate the fact that I'm going to have to edit that scene into this video because I'm probably going to have nightmares looking at that picture. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Mars Attacks. It's just alright. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 1999, we have Sleepy Hollow. I actually enjoyed this movie very much. Now, it's not like one of the best movies I've seen. Like, it's pretty much along the lines of Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like, not one of the best movies I've ever seen, but very enjoyable nonetheless. When it's supposed to be scary, it does its job. And yeah, one thing I will admit is that Johnny Depp as Ichabod Crane can be a little too over the top for me. Like, sometimes his acting is just very goofy. But like, aside from that, his Ichabod Crane is very likable nonetheless. Although it is weird that he has a thing for Christina Ricci in this movie. Like, she's gotta be, like, I'm pretty sure she was, like, in her teens when she was in this movie. And so, I don't even remember how old she was in this movie, but, like, I feel like she should have been, like, too young for Ichabod Crane.
Well, no fucking shit.
But yeah, like, Headless Horseman especially, like, as goofy as Christopher Walken is in this role, because, like, all he does is, like, shout. Before he has his, like, when he's headless, like, when he's actually headless, he's fucking terrifying. They even give off, like, a very creepy atmosphere for it, which really adds to, like, the horror aspects of the film, so yeah, I really don't have too much to say about Sleepy Hollow. I do think it's a great film. You know, not one of my favorites, but I still really enjoyed it. Let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2001, we have Planet of the Apes. Now, it's bad, but unlike most people, I don't think it's horrible. I mean, like, something I'll give the movie credit for is that the ape suits look really good. They look very well designed. But, you know, I should definitely expect that coming from a makeup artist like Rick Baker. Like, I mentioned him earlier with Ed Wood, like, oh god, my laptop is lagging. Oh, never mind. I was losing control of my laptop's trackpad for a second, but yeah, it's fine. Yeah, like, I talked about Rick Baker during Ed Wood, how he did makeup work on fucking Martin Landau so that he would look more like Bela Lugosi. Yeah, he did the ape suits in this movie as well, and yeah, pretty much like all of his other makeup work he's done, the ape suits look fucking phenomenal. And I even think that the actors playing the apes do a really good job moving like them as well. You know, like walking like them, and even running like them, and even the way they jump from tree to tree, even though I can obviously tell it was done by strings. it does look pretty good. But yeah, it can't save the fact that the story in this version is just absolutely nonsensical, and even Mark Wahlberg is, his acting is just very hokey in this. Like, his acting is just so goofy in this movie that he could definitely give Jim Carrey a run for his money. And, well, okay, the jungle type fucking world for the apes, it at least makes sense for the atmosphere it has, but like, even though I did mention like how the apes, the way they move is very well done, well, except for the jumping from tree to tree type of shit, their dialogue is just not good. Like, even the way they talk, they just sound like they're chewing on something, kind of like Sid the Sloth from Ice Age. You know, how he's got like this kind of talk. You know, it's obvious that the reason the apes talk like this in this movie is because it could be because of how thick the ape suits might be. Like, while they're wearing them, it just makes them really hard for them to talk. Which, okay, that's understandable, but like, you think they would have done something about that. Like, you would have thought that Tim Burton would notice this. So, yeah, I don't have too much to say about Planet of the Apes. Yeah, the story makes no sense, and the acting is very hokey, except, you know, except like the physical acting from the apes, I could admit, was really good. Oh yeah, Tim Roth's character, like, he needs to learn about personal space. Like, he's just always up close to people, just sniffing them like a dog would. He's just up there like... Let's see how many people I make uncomfortable doing that. Because, yeah, that was how I felt when I was watching Tim Roth act in this movie. He was like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? So, yeah. That's really all I have to say about Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. Like, it hardly makes any sense, and the acting is just not very good. Again, I was able to admit that it wasn't horrible, because, you know, I can appreciate the makeup work on the apes, and even, again, the way the actors move like the apes is very well done, especially. Yeah, it's still pretty bad. I can definitely agree with people when they say it's pretty bad. But I could disagree that it's not... Although I could disagree with people when they say it's horrible, because I actually don't think it's horrible. Like, I think there are worse movies out there than this. So, you know, another thing I can really appreciate is that he's not, like, remaking the original Planet of the Apes shot for shot. Like, it's a completely different story. But it doesn't save the fact that it doesn't save it from the fact that it makes no sense. Again, I think I'm done talking about Planet of the Apes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2003, we have Big Fish. Now this was a beautiful film. A tale of a man who had a very bizarre but wonderful life. And yet his son never believed any of his stories. Well, maybe as a kid he might have. I don't remember if he did, though. He actually might not have believed them, just having fun listening to those stories. Yeah, you know, like, now that he's an adult, yeah, he doesn't believe any of them, because, you know, like, yeah, it's sad, but at the same time I can see why, because, you know, like, everything that happened in his past, like, it would all sound so ridiculous. Like, yeah, how would you expect to believe somebody would have met a giant or stumbled across a town where shoes are outlawed? At least I'm pretty sure they were outlawed. I mean, like, yeah, everybody was barefoot, but I guess that, but I don't know if that necessarily meant they were outlawed, you know, like, even when they took Ewan McGregor's shoes off in that part, I mean, like, they had nothing against him wearing shoes to begin with, but, like, eventually there would come a part where his shoes would get taken off for him, and then they'd get thrown up to that line of string that had everybody else's shoes hanging up there. Yeah, I'm getting sidetracked. Yeah, if somebody were to stumble across a town like that and even, again, meet a giant, and even see a girl that you think is just so pretty that time literally stops, and then at the right moment it speeds up to catch up to the present time. And like, hell, how could you even expect to believe somebody when they say that they met a witch and you looked into her glass eye and saw how you died? It's like, yeah, it makes sense that he wouldn't believe any of those stories, but at the same time it's still sad because, you know, it's really how it happened. So yeah, what especially makes it more sad is that after his dad dies and he goes to his cemetery and he sees all the characters from his stories, that's when he finds out all of his stories have been real. So yeah, it's pretty sad. Though, I gotta say, I don't know how, but this movie actually did not make me cry. I mean, it got close. Like, my eyes were definitely getting watery when he was about to die. But, like, I don't know why. I don't know how. I wasn't sobbing. I mean, to be fair, I don't always cry watching movies. You know? I mean, like, Edward Scissorhands, as I mentioned before, it had me bawling. You know, it's weird. I really can't think of many movies that actually have made me cry other than Edward Scissorhands. I mean, like, it's mostly animated movies I can think of, because, you know, like, Up made me cry, Monsters, Inc. made me cry, Lion King especially made me cry, you know, when Mufasa died. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked again. Yeah, even though Big Fish didn't really send me sobbing, I still thought this was a beautiful film. Like, I could clearly see how sad this was. Like, it did break my heart, but obviously not to the extent where I'm like bawling my eyes out. Again, it does get pretty close for me. And but you know, like, before all that shit happens, they do work in plenty of good humor in this film, you know, like in all his stories, simply because of how ridiculous they are, you know. Because, you know, like, with all these trees coming to life and grabbing him, and then he's like, "This isn't how I die," and then they immediately drop him. That's probably my favorite part of the movie. Like, it's just really funny. Like, I wish that worked in real life, you know, like, I'm just walking out in the forest, and then I see a bear, and all of a sudden, I'm running, and the bear starts chasing after me, and then I stop running, and I go, "This isn't how I die." Then the bear stops, and it's like, "Oh, you know what, you're right. You know what, you have a good day, sir. I'm gonna go chase after somebody else." I mean, obviously Ewan McGregor knew how he was gonna die, because, like, he saw it in that witch's glass eye, but, like, even if I didn't know how I die, like, I still think that it would be funny if that actually worked in real life, just being like, "This isn't how I die," and then all of a sudden I survive whatever the hell could have killed me. But yeah, Big Fish, I'm pretty much rambling at this point. Yeah, Big Fish is a beautiful film. I could not recommend it enough. It definitely deserves S tier. I mean, I definitely prefer all these other movies, but Big Fish is definitely a brilliant film. And if y'all haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's a great movie. Anyways, let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2005, we have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, I grew up watching the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Like, I had that movie on DVD and I would watch it all the time. Like, I love that movie to death. And even today, I still absolutely adore that film. But, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, even though I was like 3 years old when this came out, I didn't see it until I was like 13. So, obviously 10 years after it came out. And, you know, I thought it was meh. Well, actually, back then I loved it. You know, because it was around the same time I watched Mars Attacks. And as I mentioned during that, I loved any movie I watched unless somebody were to say something bad about it. Then that's when I'd say I hated it. Because, yeah, as I got older, this version was like meh for me. But when I found out that this film was actually being more of a film adaptation of the book rather than just being a shot-for-shot remake of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I did end up liking it a little better. So yeah, even now that I look at it, some of the humor does hit pretty well for me. There are even some moments where I actually thought Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka was kind of funny. You know, like when Mr. Salt gives Willy Wonka his business card, then Willy Wonka takes it and just throws it behind him without hesitation. I thought that was funny. Like, that had me on the floor laughing. Yeah, even I can admit that there are some moments where, like, he is very cringy, you know. You know, especially when he's, like, jive talking.
Folk singers and motorbike riders, you know. All those hip, jazzy, super cool, neat, keen, and groovy cats. It's in the fridge, Daddy-O. Are you hep to the jive? Can you dig what I'm laying down? I knew that you could. Slide me some skin. So, brother?
Yeah, no thank you. Like, even Freddie Highmore, I actually thought did a really good job as Charlie. Like his performance as Charlie definitely felt like Charlie in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for me. Which, as I mentioned, I grew up watching that version. And, you know, Freddie Highmore as Charlie, he definitely captures the mannerisms of Charlie. You know, like his kindness and his caring and everything like that. Though I will admit, like, I did find it very gullible that he made the decision to, like, give up the golden ticket for money. Like, dude, you are way too kind to your family. And, like, even that grandpa telling him that he'd be a fool for giving up that golden ticket for money, I actually agreed with him. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, kid? There aren't gonna be any more of these. Like, you got the last one. So, yeah. Despite all that, yeah, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory I did think was pretty good. Definitely no better than Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but it does manage... But after finding out that it does manage to be more faithful to the book than Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory does, I did end up liking it a little better than I used to. Anyways, let's move on to the next movie, shall we? Next up, also released in 2005, we have Corpse Bride. Brilliant film. I still prefer Big Fish, but you know, Corpse Bride is absolutely wonderful. Like, the stop motion animation is stunning to look at, and even the score and the songs, all by Danny Elfman, they're absolutely brilliant, and the songs especially are really fun to listen to, especially Remains of the Day. Like, I love that song very much. And there is something I do have to say. Because I did notice when a lot of people watched this movie, they really wanted Victor to give Emily a chance. And I gotta be honest, I still preferred Victor to go with Emily. Not Emily, Victoria. That was what I meant to say, yeah. I still preferred Victor to go with Victoria. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I have nothing against Emily. Like, she is a good character. She's charming, she's funny, and Tim Burton does manage to work in a tragic backstory for her very well. But, like, Victor was just so obviously not into her. Like, it's like these people just completely forgot that he was happier with Victoria. I mean, okay, it does make it sound like I'm, like, judging people's opinions, which I'm not. I can assure y'all I'm not. Like, if y'all wanted Victor to give Emily a chance, that's cool. So yeah, as I mentioned in the video, we all gotta respect each other's opinions. And I do love this movie, but it's very obvious that it had a very different effect on me than it did on most people. Because, I didn't buy into the relationship between Victor and Emily. I still wanted him to be with Victoria, because, obviously that was who he was happier with. But okay, I will admit, when he tells Emily that he would never marry her, that was a pretty stupid thing to say. Like, yeah, he could have just told her that he married her on accident. Like, he was supposed to marry Victoria, but rehearsal goes wrong because he still needs to learn his vows. So, like, when he put the ring on Emily's hand, he was just practicing his vows, like, and her hand looked like a stick just sticking out of the ground. So, like, how was he supposed to know that was a corpse's hand just fucking sticking out of the ground waiting for somebody to put a ring on it? Like, that's not something that normally happens. Like, especially if somebody were to practice their vows before getting married. But yeah, despite that, I do love this movie, and just the fact that it gave me a different effect than most people did not make me hate the movie more. Like, I still love it just the same. Like, I do think Corpse Bride is a brilliant film, and I'll definitely watch it many more times. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, shall we? Next up, released in 2007, we have Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And when I tell y'all that this movie gave me chills for weeks, I would not be lying to y'all. Like, as far as horror movies go, this is definitely my second favorite. So, like, yeah, second favorite. Like, the only horror movie that beats Sweeney Todd for me is The Exorcist. Because, like, yeah, The Exorcist is undeniably, like, the scariest movie of all time. Well, people usually say it's one of the scariest movies of all time, but for me, it's definitely the scariest. Well, Sweeney Todd is definitely pretty close for me. Because, like, yeah, Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd was absolutely terrifying. Like, he was very intimidating. The way he has, like, this sinister look, and even when he gets so angry to the point where he, like, repeatedly stabs Alan Rickman in the neck with the razor blade. Like, god damn. This, like if there were a barbershop like this, I would never want to go there. Hell no. And aside from how scary I found this movie to be, I especially love the songs in it. Only sure I don't. I definitely haven't listened to them. Well, when I watched the movie, I did, obviously. And, like, I was really loving them. I wanted to sing along to them, but unfortunately I didn't know the words, so, like, yeah. I really gotta listen to the songs more often. I really don't have too much to say about Sweeney Todd. It has been a while since I've seen it. Like, I think I first watched it when I was, like, 17. Then I gave it a rewatch when I was 20. You know, when I was 17, I did like it. Though when I was 20, it was a lot more terrifying than I remembered it being. Even like, I don't know, there's gotta be something else in this that I remember to talk about. Oh yeah, like, when, obviously, tying back to Alan Rickman's character, like, yeah, seeing how he stole his daughter, like, yeah, that was really fucked up. And so, yeah, when Alan Rickman's character dies in this, obviously I wanted him to die, but, like, still, the way Johnny Depp approaches that like, you know, the way he feels murdering him, like, holy shit, that scared me. Like Alan Rickman finding out that he was Benjamin Barker, and then Sweeney Todd, like, screaming that, and then killing him. Jesus. I'm even giving myself chills just talking about that. And, oh yeah, like, when his daughter finds her, but, like, she's disguised as a boy, so she's, like, hiding in the chest during the moment when when he kills Alan Rickman, like, yeah. I was especially terrified because she looked like a little boy, I was actually scared that he actually would kill her without knowing that was his daughter in disguise. So yeah, I think it's obvious how much I was really scared by this movie. So yeah, like I said, it's definitely my second favorite of the horror genre, first being The Exorcist. So yeah, I think with that being said, let's move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2010, we have Alice in Wonderland. Well, okay, it's not great, but honestly, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is. I thought it was fine. I do like the way Johnny Depp plays the Mad Hatter, like, literally making him, like, mad, like, crazy, like, he has a split personality. I thought that was a pretty cool touch. And, even the way Wonderland looks, that's definitely how I would have imagined Wonderland to look if it was done in live action. Obviously, it doesn't go without saying that really Tim Burton was just relying too much on CGI in this movie, because, like, yeah, there was just so much CGI. It felt very ridiculous. Alice, I will say, definitely felt more like a spoiled brat in this movie. Like, a little more than she did in the original Alice in Wonderland. Something I especially liked is that it is a different story from the original. Because, I've mentioned this with, like, Planet of the Apes and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like, none of them are shot-for-shot remakes, which I absolutely respect. Because, I hate when remakes are done shot-for-shot. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Gus Van Sant. You know what you did with the movie Psycho. So yeah, with Alice in Wonderland, I was able to get a little invested into the story. I mean, yeah, there aren't too many things that make sense, but it's not like Planet of the Apes where the story just made no sense whatsoever. Like in this, I was able to buy a little more into the story. And some things I will admit is, yeah, Helena Bonham Carter as the Queen of Hearts is really annoying, especially when she's, like, yelling most of her lines. Which, yeah, I get it. It's the Queen of Hearts. She always yells, but, like, her yelling voice is just, I do remember it giving me a headache. And, yeah, there were especially some moments in this where that especially felt too dark for a kid's movie, like that beast getting its eye taken out. And even the fact that the Queen of Hearts has a moat of decapitated heads. What the fuck? Like, how did Disney greenlight that? I mean, again, that doesn't mean I hate this movie, I mean, sure. Is it better than the original Alice in Wonderland? No. For what it was, I thought it was fine. I think with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2012, we have Dark Shadows. And as you can tell by the look on my face, I'm very excited to talk about this movie. Yeah. This is like the only movie of Tim Burton's that I truly hate. It was boring, it was unfunny, and again, going back to Alice in Wonderland, just relying too much on an overuse of CGI. It's just like, even like some of the relationships felt very rushed. Like with Johnny Depp coming back from the dead to see this lady who looks like the woman he used to date before he became a vampire. Like, hell, why did she even go with him at the end? Like, they gave her no reason to. Like, yeah, just because she looks like this person you used to go out with doesn't mean that's who she is. Like, you would have thought somebody would have told her that earlier. Which really does add more to how much I hate Johnny Depp's character. Like, he's just so fucking annoying in this movie. Every time he talked, it felt more painful than if I were to shave my pubic hair with a weed whacker. That's how painful it felt hearing him talk. Like, ugh, God. And even Helena Bonham Carter in this, her American accent is just terrible in this. I mean, like, I'm not even sure if she was trying to do an American accent. Well, like, if she was, my God, was that horrible. And she had a better American accent when she was in Fight Club. Like, her American accent sounded very convincing in that. In this, she really needed a dialect coach for that. And, like, there are even things happening in this movie that just come out of nowhere. Like, Chloe Grace Moretz just falls from the roof and she's a werewolf. Like, the fuck? There was no buildup of that at all. Like, where the hell did that come from? Like, she just shows up out of nowhere and she's like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys, I'm a werewolf. Like, what the fuck? So, yeah. And I am aware that this movie is based on, like, a soap opera from the 60s. And before y'all ask, no, I have not watched it. But, like Nostalgia Critic pointed out when he reviewed the Avengers movie from 1998, and no, I have not seen that, thank God. I've seen the review on it, and it looks horrible, so I'm definitely boycotting that movie. Yeah, anyways, as Nostalgia Critic said in the beginning of his Avengers review, like, a movie should be good regardless of whether you've seen the show or not. And my God, did I hate every minute of this movie. Like, I mean, okay, I would say I like it a little better than Twilight, but that's not saying a lot, because, look where I put Dark Shadows. F tier. Right here in F tier, because it sucks. Like, it may be a little better than Twilight, but just like Twilight, this movie sucks. It's a boring, unfunny, and just very stupid movie. And I would never want to watch this movie again. Ugh. I just can't. I think I'm done talking about this movie. It's just like, it's just making me angry having to talk about this movie and just simply how bad this movie was. Like, I hated every second of it. Let's just move on to the next movie, shall we? 'Cause I'm done talking about this fucking movie. Next up, also released in 2012, we have Frankenweenie. Now, this movie I loved. I actually watched this like right after I watched Dark Shadows like the last time I watched it, and yeah, I'm definitely glad I watched this right after, because like Dark Shadows was so painful to watch. Frankenweenie, on the other hand, I loved every minute of it. Just like Big Fish, this movie also almost made me cry, like when Sparky died again. You know, like, I don't remember the context of it behind that too well. So again, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I do remember how watery my eyes did get when Sparky died again. Like, I remembered something about him, like, going into a windmill to, like, I think it was saving somebody who was trapped in there, or maybe it was, like, one of the pets, maybe, like, that weird kid's, cat who she fused with a bat. I think it was trapped in there, and he was like trying to save it, but it still ended up dying anyways, and he died again. Like, yeah, that did get me teary-eyed, and especially when the parents bring him back to life by jump-starting him with their car engines. That also almost made me cry, but it was like tears of joy. Just like, I was just so happy to see him come back alive that I almost cried watching it. And like, even in this, like, I absolutely love the stop motion animation, though I definitely say I prefer the stop motion animation in Corpse Bride. But in Frankenweenie, it's absolutely wonderful as well. It's absolutely stunning to look at as well. And you know, it is a really cool concept. You know, like, the way the pets come back to life and they're all, like, in the forms of, like, some classic horror monster. You know, like, obviously Sparky is, like, a Frankenstein's monster version of a dog. Then there's, like, that other weird kid, the boy, his fish turning invisible. That I especially thought was funny. She's like, what the hell? Where'd it go? Like, oh, it's invisible. Like, yeah, that definitely got a good laugh out of me as well. And I'm trying to remember some others that were there. Like, oh yeah, there was like this one kid who had like a turtle and it turned giant, like Godzilla. Like yeah, that is terrifying. And even like this other kid, I think it was like those two kids who were like the bullies. I think they had like a little pack of sea monkeys, and when they poured it into their pool and like the lightning struck the pool, and then like the sea monkeys turned into like little gremlins. Like, yeah, that was definitely creepy. Like, a lot of these animal monsters were very creepy to look at. Yeah. Again, it has been a while since I've seen Frankenweenie, so I don't remember too much for me to say a lot about it. I really love the stop motion animation. The characters are definitely very well written for me, though I would definitely prefer Corpse Bride though. But Frankenweenie I still think is a beautiful film, very well animated, and And before y'all ask, yes, I did watch the original short Frankenweenie as well, like the live-action one that had that kid from the Neverending Story. And I definitely loved that version as well. Though I'd probably say I prefer this version. I do remember watching this version as a kid as well. In like 2012, I would have been like 10 years old. Yeah, I loved watching it back then, and I still love watching it now. I mean, again, I did say it's been a while since I watched it. I'll definitely have to give it another watch sometime soon. Because, yeah, I really do love this movie. So, anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2014, we have Big Eyes. Let's see how many people have never heard of this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. I would say more than Sleepy Hollow. So yeah, for those of y'all that don't know what Big Eyes is, it's a biography on a painter named Margaret Keane. And, you know, just like Ed Wood, even though I'm not too familiar with Margaret Keane, I still found this to be a very enjoyable film. Though I guess Ed Wood I love more because it's like more connected with my personal interests, because, you know, like I love to watch movies and I love to be in movies, specifically animated movies though, because, you know, like it's what I'm in college for. I'm hoping to accomplish getting into voice acting with that. Yeah, as for Big Eyes, I'm not too big with art. I mean, I did used to draw when I was a kid, but like as an adult, I don't really do it anymore. Like, I mean, sure, if I were asked to like make a card for somebody, whether it be like for my dad or my stepmom, you know, for like, you know, like a Mother's Day or Father's Day card, I wouldn't mind sketching something, but like in my own personal time, I definitely don't draw as much as I used to when I was a kid. But, you know, Big Eyes, I'm still really able to get into the story. You know, because, like, even though it wasn't really... Even though art is, like, not really one of my biggest interests, like, this story was still very intriguing for me. Like, learning about this painter and how her husband took all the credit for her work. Like, that alone was just so fucked up. Like, what is wrong with this guy? Even, like, Christoph Waltz does a hell of a good job in this role. Especially Amy Adams as Margaret Keane. She does a really good job with this as well, you know. And, you know, I was definitely glad to see that Walter Keane got what was coming to him, because, you know, to show off how big of a fucking phony this guy was. Like, screw you, man. She deserves better than this guy. So yeah, I really don't have too much to say about Big Eyes. Even though I'm not too big of an art fan, I still found this film very enjoyable. And if y'all have time to watch this, you should definitely check it out. I think it's on Netflix. I could be wrong, though. It was definitely on Netflix back when I first watched it. But anyways, I think I'm done talking about Big Eyes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Next up, released in 2016, we have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now, I've noticed the love it or hate it type ratings that this movie has. In fact, it definitely has, like, worse love it or hate it ratings than Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. For me personally, I also enjoyed this movie. I think I'd actually say a little more than Big Eyes. Really, the first time I saw this, my ex-stepmom took me to see this in the theater. And I did remember enjoying it back then as well. And even after rewatching it, hell, I still really enjoyed it. I definitely had a lot of fun watching this movie. I'd definitely say that Pee-wee's Big Adventure was more fun, but, you know, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, it's definitely pretty close for me. Like, you know, I did find the story pretty intriguing, and all these children with these very interesting powers, I thought were really cool. You know, like, I think there was like an invisible girl. I could be wrong though. It has been a while since I've watched this. I do remember there was like this one kid who was like completely full of like helium, so it was like a balloon. I don't remember if it was like a boy or a girl. You know, like all the children I thought were really cool in this movie, and Samuel L. Jackson was definitely very terrifying in this movie. Like definitely not as terrifying as say, God, I'm losing control of my mouse pad. There we go. Definitely not as terrifying as like Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd. But you know, he does a hell of a good job in this role. You know, the thing is, I used to think this movie was rated PG, and I would remember, like, there are these monsters that just eat people's eyes, so I was like, in a PG-rated movie? Then, later on, when I found out it was PG-13, I was like, oh, okay, never mind. I guess that's okay for PG-13. So, yeah, you know, even like Miss Peregrine, I thought was a pretty interesting character. I was able to get into her pretty well. I do think it's really cool that she can turn into a raven. Like yeah, all these like supernatural powers, I just find really cool. And I especially love that scene towards the end where like they get all these like skeletons to come alive, and like they fight the eye-eating monsters. I mean, I don't remember how they got the skeletons to come to life, but it was still really entertaining to watch. Like, again, I had a lot of fun watching this movie, so yeah, I really don't have too much to say about it, because, again, it's been a while since I watched this movie. Yeah, you know, I still remember having plenty of fun watching this movie. I know not too many people like it, but for me personally, I enjoyed it. So, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, shall we? Next up, released in 2019, we have Dumbo. I'll be honest, I actually kind of liked it. I mean, okay, it's not better than the original Dumbo, but I don't know, for what they did with it, I actually kind of liked it. Like, I mean, sure, the animal cruelty in this is very unnecessary. It's like, yeah, the fact that they were about to kill Dumbo's mom. Like, it's like the Penguin in Batman Returns when he says that he's gonna kill all the firstborn sons of Gotham City. Like, I felt that, like, that they're gonna kill Dumbo's mom was especially too dark, especially for Tim Burton. But, something I'll also admit is that some of the acting can be pretty, some of the acting is not very good as well. Because, yeah, like, especially from the children, like, sometimes I don't even feel like they're trying. You know, even Colin Farrell, his acting I didn't think was very good. Although, from him, I could tell there was at least some effort put into his acting. You know, like, he does, like, a southern accent, which I thought sounded pretty good. But, like, he definitely doesn't express all that much, I feel like. I mean, I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. Something I remember especially liking about this version of Dumbo is that it's not a shot-for-shot remake, just like I've been saying with all the other remakes, like Planet of the Apes, Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Like, they're not shot-for-shot remakes. They're, like, different stories from their original counterparts. Which, okay, doesn't make it better than the original film. So, like, yeah, is this better than the original Dumbo? No. But for what they did, for what Tim Burton did with it, I did kind of like it. I don't really have too much to say about it basically because of how long it's been since I've watched this. I could definitely see why Tim Burton would have wanted to direct this, because, you know, like, the pink elephant scene, which, yeah, it was a very creepy scene, so, like, yeah, of course Tim Burton would want to do that. And I think the way he did it looked really good as well. Even though, yeah, like, pretty much like some of his later films, you know, like Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, all that shit, like, they've been suffering from, like, an overuse of CGI. So, like, yeah, obviously the pink elephant scene was going to be done with, like, CGI. But for what he did with it, I still thought it looked really cool. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Tim Burton's Dumbo. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I don't remember too much from it. Like, yeah, there are some things I remember, like, yeah, sometimes the acting can be bad, and yeah, sometimes, yes, the animal cruelty is pretty unnecessary. But, I still remembered kind of liking it. I mean, yeah, I definitely prefer Charlie and the Chocolate Factory over this movie, but, you know, they're pretty much on the same level. Like, I kind of like them both. Definitely not to the extent where I'd say they're my favorites, but whatever, I think they're pretty good. Anyways, I'm pretty much just rambling at this point. Let's just go ahead and move on to the next movie. And last up, released here in 2024, we have Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And when I went into this movie, I was really hoping to have fun watching it, and it did not disappoint for me. Like, yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, the ratings for it are like love it or hate it. Even some people saying like, it's alright. Yeah, I do hear some people complain that like Beetlejuice doesn't show up too much in this movie, but like, to be honest, he didn't show up that much in the first movie to begin with. So like, the fact that he doesn't show up too much here, I felt would make sense anyway. You know, I especially love that Tim Burton went back to using practical effects for this movie, because like, that was like one of the main things that was so cool about the first Beetlejuice, was like how well done the practical effects were. And so like the fact that he brought that style back here definitely made the movie work for me, because like, yeah, I definitely feel that if he were to use CGI in this movie, like, it definitely wouldn't work at all. And, you know, yeah, Michael Keaton, yeah, obviously, he still rocks it as Beetlejuice in this movie, because, like, yeah, because of how well he played Beetlejuice in the first movie, like, yeah, obviously nobody could play this role better. So, it was especially a good thing that Tim Burton got Michael Keaton to come back. And, I love the way Winona Ryder played Lydia, especially. You know, with how she was traumatized about all that shit that happened in the first movie, you know, with Beetlejuice trying to marry her. Like, yeah. If shit like this were to happen to me, where, like, some ghost lady were to try to marry me as a teenager, yeah, I would be traumatized as well. So yeah, I especially love that Winona Ryder plays Lydia like that. And you know, when this movie was announced, I was not expecting Catherine O'Hara to come back. Like, I didn't think they'd get her to come back, especially because, you know, obviously they wouldn't get Jeffrey Jones to come back, because I'm pretty sure we all know what he did. Well, at least some of us, maybe. I feel like people my age probably wouldn't know what he did. Hell, they probably wouldn't even know who he is. I mean, like, it just really shows how much I just love watching movies, you know. So yeah, Catherine Yeah, even Catherine O'Hara I thought did a great job in this as well. Like the way she plays her character in this movie definitely felt just like her character in the first movie. And I even like some of the newer performances, like oh yeah, Willem Dafoe I thought was really entertaining to watch. Just the fact that when he was alive, he was like this cool actor, and then like now that he's dead, he's a cop, which is pretty much like some of the roles he's played when he used to be alive. Like, I thought that was really fun. I definitely thought he was really funny, and Jenna Ortega, I especially loved her character. Like, she was... You know what I especially loved about her character was just how big of a savage she was. Like, a lot of the shit she said in this movie had me going like, damn! Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about this movie. I think I'll just leave everything I have to say about this movie here. So, like, yeah, obviously I loved it. Not as much as the first movie, but pretty damn close for me. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. And that's it for ranking Tim Burton movies on this tier list. Thank y'all so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite Tim Burton movie is. And also let me know, do you agree with my rankings? If not, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for having a completely different opinion than mine, like I said in the intro. So with that being said, thank y'all so much for watching, and I hope to talk more movies with y'all pretty soon.